Hello, welcome everyone to the Kubernetes community meeting for August 22nd, 2019. Um, we have a short but high quality agenda for you today. But before we get started, a few of the typical announcements. First of all, this meeting is recorded, so keep that in mind when you are asking questions. Um, don't put anything on there that you don't want to share with the YouTube viewing public. Second, like all Kubernetes meetings, this meeting is subject to the Kubernetes Code of Conduct. So please be excellent to each other and don't treat anybody the way you would not want to be treated. Um, and Beyond that, we are going to start with a demo. Um, but first, I want to do a quick shout out. We're going to have a light live attendance today just because many people are at Open Source Summit North America. If any of you are tuning in anyway, probably on YouTube, hope you're having a good time. I'm not there. I'm here in my home office, hence running the meeting. So we are going to go over to Jared Dillon of Mesosphere, who is presumably in his office, possibly in his home office.
That's right.
And is going to demonstrate Kudo. Now, we'll have 10 minutes for demo and 2 minutes for questions. If you want to ask a question during the demo, just please put it in the chat and I'll make sure that it gets noticed. So Jared, why don't you go ahead?
Perfect. Hey, everyone. I'm Jared Dillon, and with me is Denis, and we work together at Mesosphere, now known as D2IQ. And today, next, please. Today, I want to talk a little bit about Kudo, which is the Kubernetes Universal Declarative Operator. The Kudo is a toolkit for writing operators, and really what we're looking to do is focus on day two orchestration of really complicated stateful services. And these slides are posted up on the community meeting slides. I think I packed too much content in here to cover in 10 minutes. So we're going to blast through for about 5-6 minutes and then move to a demo of it. Kudo is inspired by the DCUS Commons SDK, which is how Mesosphere, now D2IQ, orchestrates a lot of stateful services and really what it's known for. So we're trying to replicate that experience over inside of Kubernetes as a community project. Next. So if we look at the operator developer landscape today, there's some challenges with writing operators, and a lot of those are around the fact that you have to maintain a code base separate from the code base of the thing that you're operating, right? You have to write a whole operator, and there's great toolkits to do that, but the toolkits may not be in the core competency domain of whoever's writing these, and so you have to bring up a team of Go developers to work with KubeBuilder, Operator SDK, to re-implement a lot of the ops tools that someone like Cassandra, MySQL, others have already built. And there's a high maintenance burden of that. You have a whole separate release process for your release process, etc. Next slide, please. For the users, running stateful workloads is still pretty complicated. There's not a good, well-trodden path yet for this. And there's different workflows, different APIs. There's no consistent set of CRDs, and you end up with a lot of controller sprawl as you go about this process. Next slide, please. So we set out to start fixing this with Kudo, and we started with an abstraction over lifecycle operations. So this is not software where you can just necessarily throw a bunch of manifests at Kubernetes, wait for it to fail to come up. You need sequencing. You need much more interesting lifecycle hooks around that. Kudo is a polymorphic operator. I'll talk about that a little bit more in a moment. But really what we're focused on is, okay, I have my components. I have Cassandra running. What's next, right? And so we provide a whole bunch of tools around writing custom plans to handle things like backups, restores, add a database, stuff like that. Anything that should be representable by your existing tooling should be doable via Kudo. Next slide, please. And for those actual users using it, we provide a kubectl plugin that then goes and translates all of these CRDs, this work you've done into both imperative and declarative shells for users to really easily have railroaded operations for that application. And we also handle some stuff around the leaky abstraction there, that's natural. But But really, we want people to deploy these and be able to monitor and work with them long term. Next slide. So we have some primitives here, and we're still working through this format a little bit, and ultimately these will be translated to CRDs. But we have this idea of plans, phases, and tasks, and this is really just a breakdown of different steps in a lifecycle operation, with some strategies around if you want that to happen in serial, parallel, what you want to happen during those steps. And this is necessary for certain types of software; it's not necessary for all. But if you need to, for example, for HDFS, ensure that you have name nodes before journal nodes. We help to orchestrate that entire life cycle. Next slide, please. Now, what we're doing in the upcoming version is we're actually taking all of this imperative work that you do when you're declaring an operator and automatically converting that into CRDs. And we want to do this not only for the components of your application, but like I said, all the operations. And so you can imagine a world where everything you can do with MySQL is represented as a CRD. So an index, I have Kafka up here, right? A Kafka topic could be a CRD with a set of plans that then goes and creates that topic. And there's a lot of benefits here, right? One is that as an ISV, I am shipping my software with its own runbook. And not only that, I can start taking advantage of all the Kubernetes primitives along the way so that my Kafka topic, or not only my cluster, but its topology is subject to all the rules of Kubernetes. And that includes things like backing up all of my CRDs, it includes things like GitOps, includes hooking into Kubernetes RBAC. Now I can start to say who can create a Kafka topic and who can't using the tooling that I already have as an operator. And in doing that, we want to make sure that leaky abstractions can still be imperative. For example, in talking about this, restores are still really hard to do declaratively. They're still an imperative thing. So we can back off on that in certain areas and let people decide on that. Next slide, please. So from the beginning, we're open governance model. We're based around a lightweight form of KEPs. We call them Kudo enhancement proposals, just because we don't have SIGs and whatnot, but it's largely the same process. And really, we want to bring contributors in. We have a bunch of reference operators with some community operators in progress. We release often. We have a good community going with some contributors and some multiple people in the ecosystem interested in this. And we're working on donating it to the CNCF as the sandbox project. We were actually going to present that on Tuesday. It got moved on, but we're going to be presenting that next month. And so that PR is open to move it into the CNCF. That's perfect. Yeah. And so some quick comparisons. There's a lot of ways to develop operators. Go back one. Perfect. First is Operator SDK and KubeBuilder. And by the way, we love all these frameworks, but these slides are intended to show where Kudo is optimized for. And there's plenty of reasons not to use Kudo versus one of these other frameworks. So compared to one of these traditional frameworks like Operator SDK or KubeBuilder, Kudo is polymorphic. There's one Kudo controller, one set of Kudo controllers for multiple types of operators. And we configure it via CRD and webhooks, not via writing Go. And so our test harness, everything uses Kubernetes primitives instead of writing software. We believe we're handling 90% of that, whereas KubeBuilder Operator SDK handles 60 to 70% of you for you to write from scratch. And so we're an abstraction level on top, and in fact, we're built on top of KubeBuilder. Next slide. So another natural comparison is MetaController. For those who haven't seen it, it's a project by Google, and it's another polymorphic controller. Kudo is a lot more concerned with the full orchestration of CRD lifecycles. So we're doing our own schema loading. We're actually managing CRDs for you in the sense of reference counting. That's a TBD feature. And we're looking a lot more at, like I said, day two operations and components of applications, and not just how I run my software. And then versus Helm, another natural comparison. We were, again, it's about the day two operations. It's about drift detection. It's about repair. You can actually use Helm charts in the next version to base Kudo operators around to take a Helm chart and add lifecycle hooks to it. So that's kind of a nice additional feature. We don't see ourselves in contention with something like Helm or any of the operators, but rather something you can layer other operations on top of. Next slide. How am I doing for time?
You have 2 minutes.
Okay. So the rest of these slides are up here. I want to yield to Denis for the actual demo of it. Slides are in the agenda. We have a channel in the Kubernetes Slack under #Kudo. We welcome contribution. We welcome activity. The roadmap's in there, and I'll yield to Denis. And Denis, you're muted if you're talking.
So thank you. So hi everyone. So I have this cluster in 1.15.2 running with nothing deployed there. And like Jared said, one of the nice things with Kudo is that you get a single controller that you use for all the different instances of all of the different services you want to deploy with it. So basically, you just deploy this single controller. It's very easy. It takes like perhaps 1 minute or two, and or even less, like 30 seconds, and you get your controller up and running in your Kubernetes cluster, and that will be it. You will not need any specific controller for Kafka or for Zookeeper or for anything else. So just wait for, you see it's already there, and now Kudo is there and Kudo is ready. It just took like 30 seconds. Then you want to deploy Zookeeper. It's as simple as kubectl kudo install Zookeeper and the name of the instance you want to use. And like Jared just said, we have this kind of plan that you can use to follow the execution of the deployment of your cluster. Oh, just need to run it again. Sometimes I have a bad network connection at home, so it's good. And then now that it's deployed, I see I have this deployment plan that is in progress. And I can also take a look at the pod, and I should be able to start to see my 3 Zookeeper pods being created. And they should be there in a second, and then you'll be able to see that the plan will show everything as completed. So we just deploy this Zookeeper because it will be used by our Kafka cluster. So just going through that, again, just need some time to have this container running, and we'll get the Zookeeper ready. And the next step will be that we'll go and deploy an instance of our Kafka service. Again, very easily, just Kudo install Kafka with the specific version, and that will use the Zookeeper we just deployed. So it should be ready there, yes. So I can now deploy my Kafka cluster. This is the version of the operator that contained Kafka 221. And then we have another version of it that that is deploying Kafka 230. And I'll show you just later. We can do an upgrade from one version to another. But again, as soon as you started to deploy this Kafka instance, you can use the Kudo plan status to see the progress. And you can also see the pods being created by the stateful set. So you see it's the first one. And you see the difference here is that this is serial compared to the other one where the strategy was to deploy everything in parallel because of the way Kafka works and the way you want to join the first broker when you start the second one and so on. What I'm going to do now as well is that I just start a quick generator to produce some messages and a consumer to consume these messages. So just waiting for these pods to be ready. You see the first one is already there. The second one is being created. And what I'm going to do is that I'm going to start this producer, this consumer, look at the logs to see that the messages are coming. And then I'm going to show you different things that I can't show you even now is that these are the CRDs that are currently being created. And in future version, we will use dynamic CRDs. So you will get CRDs like Jared said for topics and for many different things you want to represent. If you want to see what has been deployed by Kudo, it's as easy as doing like a kubectl get instances. And you just get these Zookeeper and Kafka instance displayed. And in the same way, you want to get more details about what is the version of the Kafka operator being deployed. You just use the standard kubectl command with this CRD, and you'll be able to see that you have the version 0.12 that is being deployed here. And again, just taking a look at the pods, they should now be all running. So I can start to have my producer here, and I can consume the messages that just to double check that everything is working well. And I should be able to check the logs. just probably need to wait for this container to be created. So it will just take a few trials before it is running. Still creating. And you see, I can start to see the messages. What I'm going to do now, and I know that we are quite late, I'm going to do an upgrade from one version to another, just to show you how easy it is to upgrade from one version to another. And then after that, I'm going to patch the current setup so that I go from 3 brokers to 5 brokers. But because we are quite late, what I propose that in the meantime, if you have questions, I can handle the question, and Jared also can handle the question, and I'm just going to run the upgrade in the background so that you can see as well. Does it make sense?
That sounds good. And I'll just provide one piece of color and then turn to questions. So the upgrade and some of these run custom plans. So for something like Zookeeper or etcd, you need to actually run API actions in order to add members. And so we handle the case where it's not as simple as just increasing your number of replicas, right? We actually run a plan in order to do that for that software. So you can see where Kudo is optimized towards a certain kind of software, and not necessarily your run-of-the-mill application deployment. And with that, I'll turn to questions while Denis works through the rest of the demo.
We're actually kind of over time at this point.
Okay, sorry about that. And thank you for the time.
Yeah, so we're going to cut that off. If people have additional questions, so one question's already been answered in chat. If people have additional questions, please post them in the group chat, or the contact information for Jared and Denise is in the notes. So you can ask them there, as well as contact information for the project, which is probably the best place to ask those questions. So
thank you very much.
Yeah, thank you.
So next we are going to move on to release updates with our fearless release leader, Lockie.
Hey Josh, coming to you live from Open Source Summit North America Wi-Fi. So if I cut out, everything is in the agenda. I'm in the expo hall, so having a wonderful time here. Lovely to see you all. Updates from Release Manager. Beta 1 of 1.16 was released on Tuesday, August 20th. So if you're interested in seeing the latest features that are coming out later in September in the 1.16 release, now's your chance to get your hands on them. Upcoming milestones for the 1.16 release. If you have enhancements that are scheduled to go into the release, you need your docs in by tomorrow. So it does not need to be completed, although you need to have the placeholder PR in place. Otherwise, you will start to hit a wall with getting your enhancement in. So please make sure that that happens. Other call to action is end of next week, Friday next week, which is August 29th, we have the code freeze. So if you have enhancement, all code needs to be merged into Kubernetes by next Friday. If that does not happen, you need to go through an exception process. So please work towards that goal. It would be very much appreciated by the 1.16 release team. Patch releases, we had a patch release earlier this week on Monday of all the supported releases. So 1.15.3, 1.14.6, and 1.13.10, which actually fixes 2 CVEs related to a different type of flood against the HTTP2 interface. So if we recommend you get them patched. Details about those CVEs can be found in the that's specifically a ping and reset floods. All updates and patches are released on the Kubernetes dev mailing list. So if you'd like to receive these updates, please go ahead and join that Google group and you will get that email. So you will be the first to know. That is the updates from the release lead. I can field questions in the chat. I'll be around for another 5 minutes or so. Thanks, Josh, and I'll hand it back to you, mate.
Cool. Thank you. So definitely get your docs in if you are working on stuff for the upcoming release. As a matter of fact, if you just finish your docs now, you can avoid a lot of pestering by the docs team. So we only have one SIG update scheduled for today's meeting, but it's an interesting one. Mateus is going to give us an update on SIG service catalog and what they're up to. If I'm pronouncing your name correctly.
Yeah, that was Good
Okay,
financially.
cool. Thanks.
So let me share my screen to do it. Okay, right now you should see the slide deck. Okay, great, super.
Yep.
So thanks for inviting me. I'm one of the chair from SIG Service Catalog, and I want to present you our updates from our SIG. Basically, we can start with the changes that we made and could affect you. So first of all, we moved our repository from Kubernetes Incubator into Kubernetes 6. So be aware that you need to update your project location in your computer. So we also change our imports. Without moving them into correct path, it will not work. Second thing, on previous meeting, Jonathan already mentioned that there will be some changes under leaderships, and that's true. Right now, I can officially state that Jay stepped out from being a chair. I become a new chair, and also Piotr Miszkiewicz become a new approver. So welcome on board, Piotr. Second thing is that we enabled end-to-end testing. Previously, tests were executed on Jenkins. When Jenkins was removed, we lose them. And why I'm talking about it? Because for enabling that, we use the Kind project. As far as I know, is developed under SIG testing. And it's really fast and easy way to execute end-to-end tests, both locally and on CI. It also fits nicely to pro configuration. So kudos to all developers and contributors from that project. And that was basically about changes that can affect you. But of course, there was much more work done. But there are implementation details. So if you are interested, then just join our SIG meeting. So that was about changes that we did, and what we are doing right now. Basically, we are doing a lot of base ground for moving from aggregated API server to CRD approach. And believe me, it's really a huge change for us. We already have one pull request under review. We already updated documentation also under the Kubernetes IO side and under our side. We have new release process. Thanks to that, we can release the CRD from master and also provide a bug fixing for old implementation. Special thanks to Adam Wała who worked on that. We also have already migration tool and the documentation already in place. So don't be worried. The migration process should be really smooth for you. And it's done already automatically. If you use Helm, there's also a diagram showing you what is doing under the hood. And just contact us if you will have any problems with it or any questions. And also we are planning to add the additional pipeline for executing upgrade tests. So thanks to that, we'll know that our migration process is working correctly. And how those plans affect you, basically, the old implementation with the API server right now will be available only on the dedicated V2 branch. And we provide bug fixing support for that for next month. So one thing is that in the next Monday, we are planning to release the last version of the API server, which will contain the features. After that, we provide only patches for bug fixing. And to be able to support two versions in the same time, we needed to adjust a little bit our names artifacts. So basically, master branch will still have the canary and latest, and those artifacts will be connected with new version with CRD, basically with version 0.3, current milestone for us. And about the old implementation with the API server, it will be released from 0.2 branch, and we will have additional suffix there. So if you want to use images from old version, then do not forget to have those additional suffix. Same thing with the Helm charts. The new version still sits under the catalog name. The old one will be with additional suffix, and also it applies to SVCAT binaries. To show that you is that, for example, okay, I see that is a location. So basically that guy v2 should be placed here, and basically the master branch, so the newest version will be installed in a normal way, and install service catalog, and upgrade will be done in the same way. With old version, just append that prefix. It is quite easy, but you need to remember about it. Next plans for our current milestones. So documentation enhancement, we want to be compliant with the official guidelines. We want to clean up a little bit our structure and and so on. CI pipeline cleanups, basically we already did a lot of things because we enabled end-to-end testing. We split one of our job. Thanks to that, our time to merge was reduced from 1 hour to around 10 minutes. So it's quite a nice feature and improvement. And maybe because right now we are for releasing, we are using Travis, maybe we try to move from Travis to Prow. What's more, the new SB API was released some time ago, and we want to be compliant with that in current milestone. And next thing, quite nice, is user-provided services. Currently, we are supporting that by dedicated broker, but in current milestone, we want to implement that functionality directly in the service catalog, so using additional broker will not be necessary. And the last thing, almost the last thing, but also important for us, is to migrate service catalog resources under SIG control. What that means? Basically, we have our page under svcat.io, and we are not owning directly that DNS. So we want to migrate that to something more connected with the SIG. So it will be probably under new domain, and same thing for downloading our svcat binaries. Still need to figure out how to do it properly, but there is the case that we want to do. And last thing, but quite big, is to decide what we want to do with the preset functionality. It was started in the SIG service catalog, but yeah, it's we need to contact SIG apps probably, and also SIG architecture about that vision. It will be removed or somehow supported by the Kubernetes itself. We also have a new sub-project called Mini Broker. Mini Broker basically implements the USB API, and it's really good for development and testing, local development. We are already using that in our workflow documentation. Previously, it was created by one of our C contributor, Carolines, but she decided to donate that to Kubernetes. So thanks, Carolines, for doing that. Second sub-project that we'll own, it's still in progress, is the broker client written in Go. We are using that directly in service catalog to communicate with the brokers. So we need to move it directly under Kubernetes 6 to be able to provide additional functionalities and develop that code. It was started by Pimori, and right now I think that in a few days it should be already under Kubernetes 6 organization. And one more time, special thanks to Nikita, because she's running the whole repository migration for us. We can contribute. Of course, we have a good first issues. There is a lot of them, but you can basically assign to any unassigned task from current milestone. You can just contact us on Slack or on our SIG meeting. And about our SIG, one thing was that we changed the time from 1 p.m. to 9 a.m. Pacific time. So if it doesn't works for you, just contact us and you can work on a different time probably. And last slide about current chairs. So me and Jonathan, our homepage, Slack channel, and Google group list. So from my side is everything that I wanted to share with you, but if you have any questions, then you can ask. Thank you very much.
Cool. Does anybody have any questions for SIG Service Catalog? Okay, in that case, next up, George, you want to talk about the steering committee election?
Yes. So everybody, in case you haven't seen the post to the Kubernetes dev list, it is the election. The TLDR starts usually around August and will execute in October. All the instructions that you have are listed on the list, the post on the list. They'll either come from myself, Mr. Bobby Tables, or Brian Grant, or Ihor. We plan on doing, since we just announced the election, we are going to plan to give a quick status update both in this meeting every week and weekly to the Kubernetes dev list itself. In case you are confused, the Kubernetes dev mailing list will be the source of truth for all the information concerning the election. We're currently in the nomination period. So just a quick recap of those rules. You can nominate yourself, and you need 2+1s from people who are different affiliations from you. And then you will follow the instructions and basically PR a little a little markdown file into the election directory, you know, talk about your platform, why I should vote for you, that sort of thing. And then in a few weeks, we will have votes. So more to come on that. I just wanted to let everyone know that the statuses will start to flood the developer mailing list. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay. And then with that, we will wind up with some shout outs. Aaron, give a shout out to Tim Pepper for taking notes during the infra meeting. And Tim Pepper gave a shout out to Christoph Blecker, Ben, and I don't know whose Nick that is. But anyway, 3 members of the release team for their work across the past, the release engineering team, work across the past 5 days to get the Golang CVED updates accounted for and the new releases out, so that we can have security patches for all of those things as soon as they were public. Thanks so much. And with that, that is all for, again, a brief but high quality community meeting. Next week's community meeting.
I got it open right here, Josh.
Oh, you do? Who do we have?
Yeah, so Don Foster will be your host, and we're going to have SIG Architecture, SIG Windows, and SIG Multi-Cluster.
Yep. So if you are a leader of one of those SIGs, that is your first notice to prepare an update. Actually, it's not your first notice. It's really your second notice to prepare an update for next week. And with that, I will wrap up. Thanks to everybody. And let's keep 116 going.